It was an ordinary evening when Rudy decided to take the dogs for a walk. He didn't tell his mom, Janie, much, just a casual, "I'll be back soon." But the night stretched on and on. The dogs returned home alone, scratching at the door, but Rudy was nowhere to be seen. At first, Janie didn't panic. Maybe he got distracted or ran into someone he knew. But as the hours passed, that small knot of worry in her stomach grew tighter. By morning, her son was still missing. That's when the fear really set in. Janie immediately contacted the police, reporting Rudy's disappearance. The search for him began that very day, with neighbors, friends, and even strangers rallying to help. Missing posters with Rudy's face appeared on telephone poles and storefront windows. His name echoed through the neighborhood. Where could he have gone? Days passed, then weeks, but there was no trace of Rudy. Janie didn't rest. She launched a GoFundMe campaign to hire a private investigator, desperate to find any clue about what had happened to her son. Local news stations picked up the story. Billboards with Rudy's face were plastered across the city, but nothing came of it. No leads, no sightings. It was as if Rudy had vanished into thin air. Years began to blur together, the search for Rudy fading into the background. Life continued, but for Janie, the wound never healed. Her son was gone, and she didn't know why. Then, nearly 8 years after that fateful night, a strange event occurred. One night, outside a small local church, a man was found lying unconscious. He looked rough, disheveled, unresponsive, and clearly not in a good state. The police were called to the scene, and when they arrived, they couldn't believe what they discovered. After identifying the man, they realized it was Rudy. The boy who had been missing for almost a decade was now a 26-year-old man, alive but fragile. What had happened to him all those years? Hold on for a second. If you're captivated by this mysterious story, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. We've got plenty more stories that'll keep you on the edge of your seat. Janie rushed to the police station the moment she got the call. Her heart raced. She was going to see her son again after all this time. When she walked in, there he was, Rudy, now a grown man. She threw her arms around him, tears streaming down her face. But something about the reunion felt off. Rudy looked distant, almost hollow. He was safe now, but his eyes held the weight of something much darker. The authorities soon realized something wasn't adding up. How could Rudy have been missing for 8 years, yet suddenly turn up out of the blue like this? Where had he been? When they questioned Rudy, the story he told them was almost too bizarre to believe. Rudy explained that on the night he disappeared, he had only run away for a short time, but within a couple of days, he returned home. Janie, his mother, was shocked to see him walk through the door. She had already reported him missing. The flyers were up, the police were involved, the search was on. And in that moment, Janie made a decision. Instead of telling everyone that Rudy was back, she decided to keep the story going. She warned Rudy that if the police found out he had run away, he'd be arrested. The only way to stay safe, she told him, was to hide. And so for 8 long years, Rudy lived in hiding inside his own home. His mother had convinced him that the outside world was dangerous, that if anyone found out the truth, he would face serious legal trouble. Rudy believed her. He had no reason not to. And so, when family came over, he would hide. When friends stopped by, he would slip into another room. And whenever anyone asked, Janie would introduce Rudy under a fake name, telling them he was her nephew. It was all a carefully crafted illusion, and Rudy was trapped in it. But the situation only got more twisted. Over the years, Janie's control over Rudy deepened. She began to make unusual demands, like asking him to share her bed or be with her in the bathroom. Though Rudy was quick to clarify that she never physically harmed him, the boundaries she crossed left him feeling uncomfortable, even violated. Her emotional grip on him was strong, and she used every tactic to keep him under her thumb. Years passed in this strange, toxic arrangement. Rudy, isolated from the world, grew more and more desperate for freedom. He longed for a life outside the walls of his own home, for a car of his own, for any semblance of independence. But every time he asked, Janie shot him down. She insisted that if he ever left, the police would catch him. And whenever Rudy suggested getting a lawyer, she claimed it was too expensive. It was a never-ending cycle of manipulation. As the years dragged on, Rudy began to spiral. He developed a drug habit, a coping mechanism for the unbearable situation he was in. But despite everything, he couldn't bring himself to leave his mother. Not yet. Until one night, 8 years after it all began, Rudy reached his breaking point. Just like he had all those years ago, Rudy decided to run. He left home, this time for good, walking aimlessly through the city until he collapsed outside a church. And that's where his story resurfaced. Now Rudy no longer lives with Janie. From what we know, he's staying with friends, trying to piece his life back together. Despite everything, Rudy has chosen not to press charges against his mother. Maybe he just wants to move on. Maybe he's tired of the chaos, the manipulation, and the lies. Thanks for watching. If you like this story, make sure to subscribe and leave a comment below. What story would you like to hear next?